Hey, you know what time it is? Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! We are back, darlings. We are back, baby. We are back with Storytime with Chris. Okay, making sure I'm at least somewhat centered. So, hi. Welcome back for Storytime with Chris. As I always try to say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, in between time, nap time, work time, chillaxing, maxing, relaxing time, nap time. Whatever time you have to watch these videos, they are here for your leisure and pleasure. We're back with Storytime with Chris. I had to take a break because I just needed some time off to just relax and get my career in a proper direction and do things for myself for once, and to do some self-love and some healing work and allowing myself to recuperate and relax. It's important. It's important to check in into one's mind and body to be sure that we do the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves, not just some of the time, but all of the time. It's awesome to be able to help other people, but you also have to be able to do for yourself sometimes. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad for being proactive about self-care and self-love. It's a powerful thing. Of course, I don't own the music that you're listening to in the background, which is brought to you by our wonderful friend, Mr. Ambiance. Please check them out on YouTube. Mr. Ambiance, Ambience. There we go. I was talking a little too fast. But please check them out. They always have some great ambient music that we use here on this channel, and I do appreciate that. So please, please, please give them some love. And give my channel some love. And like I say, I don't do this for profit. This is something that I do as a passion project for my love of literature, because reading is not just fundamental, it is essential. It helps elevate our diction. It helps elevate our perspectives on different cultures and different backgrounds and ethnicities and nationalities and class circumstances. It helps broaden our scope of the world around us and letting ourselves fall into the shoes of somebody we may not normally be used to being. And it allows us to build our minds and make us a bit more well-rounded than what we were before. Whether it's a novel, a novella, a comic, a manga, a mangua, a magazine, a newspaper clipping, you should always be reading. Always. So, we're back with The Black Cauldron. And it's been a while since we've been gone, so if you haven't noticed, if you go on the YouTube channel for those who are subscribed, all of the most recent chapters, including all of the chapters of A Series of Unfortunate Events, Book 1, The Bad Beginning, are all on YouTube, as well as the more recent chapters of Lloyd Alexander's The Black Cauldron are all on YouTube, and they are available for your leisure at whatever time you choose to listen to them. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and begin. Sit back, relax. I got my tea all ready. Get my glasses, because you know I am notorious for not having them clean, but I cleaned my glasses before I started today. It's called practice. It's called consistency. All right, y'all. We'll go ahead and get started. So the last time we were here, Taran, the bard, Adion, and Elidir, Prince Elidir, and then Princess Iladwe, Gurgi, Dolly, Fluter, basically the whole crew that we've been introduced towards the beginning of this book, have found themselves in a refuge of the fair folk. So they're trying to run away from the huntsmen of Anuvan, who are incredibly powerful warriors that serve the Dark Lord Arorn. So they are trying to find out why the Black Cauldron is missing, because that was their whole reason of going to Blackgate, which is the back entrance of the Dark Lord's castle, and come to find out the Black Cauldron isn't there. And so we're trying to figure out what happened and who may have taken it, and we might get some insight in this chapter. Chapter 7. Caw. Taran stopped short. "You know that?" he asked in surprise. "Then why didn't you—" Gwistel gulped and darted nervous glances about him.
Oh, I know, but only in a very general way, you understand. I mean, I don't really know anything at all, just a usual unfounded rumor you might expect to hear in a beastly place like this. Of course, no importance, pay no attention to it.
Gwistle, said Dolly sharply, you know more about this than you let on. Now out with it! The gloomy creature flung his hands to his head and began moaning and rocking back and forth.
Do go away and leave me alone, he sobbed. I'm not well. I have so many tasks to finish. I shall never be caught up.
He's a very melancholy character, so gotta really jazz it up. You must tell us, cried Taran. Please, he added, lowering his voice, for the wretched Gwistle had begun to shake violently, his eyes turning up as though he were about to have a fit. Do not keep your knowledge from us. If you stay silent, our lives are risked for no purpose.
Leave it alone, Gwistle choked, fanning himself with an edge of his robe. Don't bother with it, forget it. That's the best thing you could do. Go back wherever you came from. Don't even think about it.
How can we do that? Taran cried. Aurorn won't rest until he has the cauldron again.
Of course he won't rest, Gwistle said. He isn't resting now. That's exactly why you should drop the search and go quietly. You'll only stir up more trouble, and there's enough of that already.
Then we better get back to Cauldron and join Gwydion as quickly as we can,
Iladwe said.
Yes, by all means, broke in Gwistle, with the first trace of eagerness Taran had glimpsed in this strange individual. I only give you this advice for your own good. I'm glad, very glad you've seen fit to follow it. Now, of course, he added almost brightly, you'll want to be on your way. Very wise of you. I, unhappily, have to stay here. I envy you. I really do.
I lost my place. Hold on one second. I was too in character.
But that's the way of it, and there's little anyone can do. A pleasure meeting you all. Goodbye.
Goodbye,
cried Iladwe.
If we put our noses above ground and the huntsmen are waiting for us, yes, it will be goodbye indeed. Dolly says it's your duty to help us, and with that you haven't done a thing, except sigh and moan. If this is the best that the fair folk can manage, why, I'd rather be up in a tree with my toes tied together.
Gwistle clutched his head again. Please, please, don't shout. I'm not up to shouting today. Not after the horses. One of you could go and see if the huntsmen are still there. Not that it will really do any good, for they might have just stepped away for a moment.
I wonder who'll do that, muttered the dwarf. Good old Dolly, of course. I thought I'd done with making myself invisible.
I could give all of you a little something, Gwistle went on. Not that it will do much good. It's kind of powder I've put by in case of need. I was saving it for emergencies.
What do you call this, you clot? Dolly growled.
Yes, well, I meant more for personal emergencies, Gwistle explained, paling. But it doesn't matter about me.
Oh, goodness, y'all. Pardon me. I was moving too fast.
But it doesn't matter about me. You can have it all. Take all of it. Go ahead. You put it on your feet, or whatever you walk on, I mean hooves and so forth, Gwistle added. It doesn't work too well, hardly much sense in bothering, because it wears off. Naturally, if you're walking on it, it would do that. However, it will hide your tracks for a while.
That's what we need, said Taran. Once we throw the huntsmen off our trail, I think we can outrun them.
I'll get some, Gwistle said with eagerness. It won't take a moment.
As he made to leave the chamber, however, Dolly took him by the arm.
Gwistle,
said the dwarf severely. "You have a skulking, sneaking look in your eyes. You might hoodwink my friends, but don't forget you're also dealing with one of the fair folk. I have a feeling," Dolly added, tightening his grip, "you're far too anxious to see us gone. I'm beginning to wonder if I squeezed you a little, what more might come out." At this, Gwistle rolled up his eyes and fainted away. The dwarf had to haul him upright while Tard and the others fanned him. At length, Gwistle opened one eye. "Sorry," he gasped. "Not myself today. Too bad about the cauldron. One of those unfortunate things." The crow, who had been watching all this activity, turned a beady glance on his owner and flapped his wings with such vigor that Gurgi roused himself in alarm.
"I do,"
Caw croaked. Fluter turned in surprise. "Well, can you imagine that? He didn't say caw at all. At least it didn't seem that way to me. I could have sworn he said something like Ordu."
"Orwin," croaked Caw. "Orgok."
"There," said Fluter, looking at the bird with fascination. "He did it again." "It's strange," agreed Tard. "It sounded like Ordu Orwin Orgok. And look at him running back and forth on his perch. Do you think we've upset him?"
He acts as if he wants to tell us something,
began Ilanwe. Gwistle's face, meanwhile, had turned the color of ancient cheese. "You may not want us to know," said Dolly, roughly seizing the terrified Gwistle, "but he does. This time, Gwistle, I really mean to squeeze you." No, Dolly, please don't do that," wailed Gwistle. "Don't give him another thought. He does odd things. I've tried to teach him better habits, but it doesn't do any good." A flood of Gwistles pleading and moaning followed, but the dwarf paid no heed and began to carry out his threat. "No," squeezed Gwistle. "No squeezing, not today. Listen to me, Dolly," he added, his eyes crossing and uncrossing frantically. "If I tell you, will you promise to go away?" Dolly nodded and relaxed his grip. "All Caw meant to say," Gwistle went on hurriedly, "is that the cauldron is in the hands of Ordu, Orwin, and Orgok. That's all. It's a shame, but there's certainly nothing to be done about it. It hardly seemed worth mentioning." "Who are Ordu, Orwin, and Orgok?" Tarwin asked. His excitement and impatience were getting the better of him, too, and he was sorely tempted to aid Dolly in squeezing Gwistle. "Who are they?" murmured Gwistle. "You had better ask, what are they?" "Very well," cried Tard. "What are they?" "I don't know," replied Gwistle. "It's hard to say. It doesn't matter. They've got the cauldron, and you might as well let it rest there." He shuddered violently. "Don't meddle with them. There's no earthly use in it." "Whoever they are, whatever they are," cried Taran, turning to the rest of the company, "I shall find them and take the cauldron. That's what we set out to do, and we should not turn back now. Where do they live?" he asked Gwistle. "Live?" said Gwistle with a frown. "They don't live. Not exactly. It's all very vague. I really don't know." Caw flapped his wings again.
"Marva!"
He croaked. "I mean," Gwistle moaned as the angry Dolly reached for him again, "they stay in the marshes of Morva. Exactly where, I have no idea. No idea at all. That's the trouble. You'll never find them. And if you do, which you won't, you'll wish you never had." Gwistle wrung his bony hands, and his trembling features indeed held a look of deepest dread. "I have heard of the marshes of Morva," Adion said. "They lie to the west of here. How far? I do not know." "I do," interrupted Fluter. "A good day's journey, I should say. I once came upon them during my wanderings. I recall them quite clearly. Unpleasant stretch of country and quite terrifying. Not that it bothered me, of course. Undaunted, I strode through—" A harp string snapped abruptly with a resounding twang. "I went around them," the bard corrected himself hurriedly. "Dreadful, smelly, ugly-looking fiends they were. But," he added, "if that's where the cauldron is, then I say with Taran, go there. A flam never hesitates." "A flam never hesitates to open his mouth," put in Dolly. "Gwistle was telling the truth for once. I'm sure of it. I've heard tales back in Idleleg's realm of those, whatever you calls them, and they weren't pleasant. Nobody knows about them. Or if they do, they aren't telling.
You should pay attention, Dolly,
interrupted Ilanwe, turning impatiently to Taran.
I don't see how you could even think about getting the cauldron away from whoever it has it and not even knowing whatever it is.
Besides, Ilanwe went on,
Gwydion ordered us to meet him at Carrick-a-Darn, and if my memory hasn't gotten holes in it from all the nonsense I've been hearing, he didn't say a word about going off in the opposite direction.
You don't understand, Taran retorted. When he told us to meet him, he was going to plan a new search. He didn't know we would find the cauldron.
In the first place, Ilanwe said, you haven't found the cauldron.
But we do know where it is, cried Fluter. That's just as good.
And in the second place,
Ilanwe continued, ignoring the bard,
if you've got any news about it, the only wise thing is to find Gwydion and tell him what to do.
That's sense, put in Dolly. We'll have enough trouble getting to Carrick-a-Darn without splashing around in swamps on a wild goose chase. You listen to her. She's the only one outside of myself who has any notion of what ought to be done.
Taran hesitated. It may be, he said after a pause, that it would be wiser returning to Gwydion. King Morgat and his warriors can lend us their strength. He spoke these words with some effort. In the back of his mind he yearned to find the cauldron, to bring it in triumph to Gwydion. Nevertheless, he could not deny to himself that Ilanwe and Dolly had proposed the surer plan. So, sure is basically, it's to further emphasize you're sure of something. So, or it's an affirmation. When somebody's asking you a question like, hey, do you want to go get something to eat? Sure. Oh, I'm sure of it. You're confident and affirming in your decision making. So he's sure. The surer path, the more affirming path, is the path you should be on, is basically what they're trying to say in the story. It seems to me then, he began, but he had no sooner started to agree with Dolly than Eladir thrust his way to the fireside.
Pig boy,
Eladir said,
you've chosen well. Return with your friends and let us make our parting here.
Parting? Asked Taran, puzzled.
Do you think I would turn my back now when the prize is nearly won?
Eladir said coldly.
Go your way, pig boy, and I shall go mine. To the marshes of Morva themselves. Wait for me at Carrick-a-Darn.
Eladir added with a scornful smile.
Warm your courage beside the fire. I shall bring the cauldron there.
Taran's eyes flashed with anger at Eladir's words. The thought that Eladir should find the cauldron was more than he could bear. I shall warm my courage, son of Penlarkar, he cried. In whatever fire you choose. Go back, the rest of you, if that's what you want. I was fool to listen to the thoughts of a girl. Ilanwe gave a furious shriek. Dolly raised a hand in protest, but Taran cut him short. He was calmer now than his first anger had passed. This is not a game of courage, he said. I would be twice a fool, and so should we all, to be goaded by an idle taunt. This much at least I have learned from Gwydion, but there is also this. Auroran seeks the cauldron even now. We do not dare lose the time it would take to bring help. If he finds the cauldron before we do...
And if he doesn't, put in Dolly, how do you know he knows where it is? But if he doesn't know, how long will it take him to find out? Meanwhile, I'll be bound, even with all his cauldron-born and huntsmen and gwithates and what have you. There's a risk either way. Any codpole can see that. But if you ask me, there's more risk than otherwise if you go popping off into the marshes of Morva.
And you, Taran of Caradolman, said Ilanwe, you're only making excuses for some harebrained idea of your own. You've been talking and talking, and you've forgotten one thing. You're not the one to decide anything, and neither are you, Eladir. Adion commands you both, if I'm not mistaken.
Taran flushed at Ilanwe's reminder. Forgive me, Adion, he said, bowing his head. I did not intend to disobey your orders. The choice is yours. Adion, who had been listening silently near the fire, shook his head. No, he said quietly. This choice cannot be mine. I have said nothing for or against your plan. The decision is greater than I dare make. But why? Cried Taran. I don't understand, he said quickly and with concern. Of all of us, you know best what to do. Adion turned his gray eyes toward the fire. Perhaps you will understand one day. For now, choose your path, Taran of Caerdalban, he said. Wherever it may lead, I promise you my help.
Taran drew back and stood silent a moment, filled with distress and uneasiness. It was not fear touching his heart, but the wordless sorrow of dry leaves rushing desolate before the wind. Adion continued to watch the dance of the flames.
I shall go to the marshes of Morva,
Taran said. Adion nodded.
So it shall be.
No one spoke then. Even Elidir made no reply. He bit his lips and fingered the hilt of his sword. "Well," said Dolly at last, "I suppose I might as well go along too. Do what I can, but it's a mistake, I warn you." "Mistake?" cried the jubilant bard. "By no means! I wouldn't be kept away from it."
And I certainly won't, declared Ilanme. Someone has to make sure there are at least a few of us with a good sense along. Marshes, ugh! If you insist on making fools of yourselves, I wish you'd pick a drier way.
And Gurgi will help,
shouted Gurgi, springing to his feet.
Yes, with seekings and pickings.
"Gwistle," said Dolly with a look of resignation, "you might as well go and fetch that powder you were talking about." While Gwistle eagerly rummaged through the alcove, the dwarf drew a deep breath and flickered out of sight. He was back after some length of time, fully visible and looking furious, his ears trembling and ribbed with blue. "There's 5 huntsmen camped over the rise," he said. "They've settled down for the, oh, my ears, night. If that powder is any good, we'd be well away before they even know we've been here." The companions dusted their feet in the hooves of the steeds with a black substance Gwistle distributed from a mouldering sack. He seemed almost gleeful, as Taran untethered Melilas and led the horse from behind the screen of brambles.
Goodbye, muttered Gwistle. "I hate to see you waste your time, not to mention your lives, but that's the way of it, I suppose. Here today, gone tomorrow, and what's anyone to do about it? Goodbye. I hope we meet again. But not soon. Goodbye."
With that, the portal shut, and Taran took a firmer grip on the bridle of Melilas, and the companions moved
silently through the forest. And that is where we will end for tonight. Again, thank you all so very much. It's good to be back. It's great to be back in the flesh. It's great that I get to continue to do this for you all. I hope you all have enjoyed yourself, and I'll see you all next time, okay? See you all next time.